Hey, what's up, y'all? Matt MX is on the mic, and today we are doing a 2015 NBA redraft. So yeah, these guys have really been in the decade for, or I mean, in the league for a decade, which is just really weird to say because this is one of the first classes I remember really coming up, from the beginning, from like their high school days. So anyway, let's just get right into this. So first overall pick, the Timberwolves originally took Karl Anthony Towns, and I think they stay the course. So I was like kind of 50-50 on if they would stay the course. I think Devin Booker makes a very strong case to be drafted first overall, but at the end of the day, I think no matter who the Timberwolves draft, I just don't think it changes their fortunes. There are bigger structural problems within the team, and I think Cat better. He was a better player from the jump. He won Rookie of the Year, so I think that's really the tiebreaker for me. But So, with the second overall pick, the Los Angeles Lakers originally took D'Angelo Russell. He ended up becoming an all-star, but not for the Lakers. So I think the Lakers go in a different direction. I think they draft who I was talking about before, Devin Booker. Booker has consistently been one of the best scorers in the league. He helped get the Suns to the finals in 2021, helped them get the best record in the league in 2022. And I think he would be an insanely valuable piece to the Lakers, and I don't think you need me to tell you that. So of course, this makes things interesting because all of a sudden the Lakers have a big three in 2020 of Booker, LeBron, and AD, and that of course extends into 2021 and beyond. So they possibly could get another chip out of that LeBron AD era if they have Devin Booker by their side. Because remember, the Suns, they eliminated the Lakers, and now all of a sudden they're not a threat without Devin Booker. So I think that really changes a lot. So with the third overall pick, the Philadelphia 76ers, they originally took Jahlil Okafor. He was kind of the last of a dying breed in terms of post-up bigs. He didn't really end up developing into much. He never really developed defense. He never really developed any like legitimate ways of scoring outside of in the post, which was just a very backwards way of scoring. So I do think the Philadelphia 76ers, they still need a big man to complement Joel Embiid. So why not take the other most injury-prone big man, Kristaps Porzingis? I mean, listen, injuries have been a consistent part of Porzingis' career. Who knows what he could have been if he had stayed on the court consistently. But at the end of the day, he's still had a very good career. He was an all-star in 2018. Last season, he played a big part of helping the Celtics win a championship, and he's continuing to help them be one of the most dominant teams in the league. So next up is the New York Knicks. They originally took Kristaps Porzingis, a pick that was criticized at the time, but ended up being a pretty good pick. So good that Porzingis is no longer on the board. So who did they go for? They go for D'Angelo Russell, who the Lakers originally took second. He hasn't had a bad career. I think maybe not quite where you want second overall pick to be, but he's still one of the best players in this class. That shouldn't be deniable. He's been around. Of course, his best years were in Brooklyn in 2019, and now he's back in Brooklyn, ironically. And so he's going to be drafted to the other New York team, and we'll see how that changes their fortunes. Of course, we know now that they're led by Jalen Brunson, a point guard, so I don't know that D'Lo would still be on the Knicks today if this was the pick they made, but I do think he would have complemented Carmelo Anthony in his later years a little better than Porzingis did. And of course, D'Lo, he's relatively healthy. He doesn't deal with injuries the way Kristaps Porzingis or Zion Williamson. So next up is the Orlando Magic. They originally took Mario Hezonja, which you probably only know him because of the one time he blocked LeBron in, I think, 2019. That's really all he ever did in the NBA. And that wasn't with the Magic, that was with the Knicks. So yeah, the Magic, they need to go in a different direction, very obviously, with this pick. So what did they do? I think they go for Terry Rozier, the point guard, shooting guard, currently on the Miami Heat. I mean, he's a guy who hasn't quite been a star, I'd say, but he's been very consistently a good scorer, solid playmaker. I think he's a guy the Magic could really use. The Magic, they've kind of had a lot of questions at point guard. Basically, since I've been watching the NBA, they haven't really found anyone to consistently man that position. I think Terry Rozier would be a very good fit for them. I think the Magic, they're a team that has a lot of defense, but they just haven't found a way to score. It's just because their offense kind of stagnates because they just don't have anyone to consistently create. Okay, so now we are at the sixth pick, which the Sacramento Kings originally used to draft Willie Cauley-Stein, which was honestly a very surprising pick even at the time, considering they had DeMarcus Cousins. But of course, we know in hindsight that he didn't really have as many years left as we thought. So the thought process was probably not terrible, but the player they drafted is. I mean, I don't even think Willie Cauley-Stein's in the NBA anymore. So instead, they will draft Mr. Consistency, Miles Turner. This guy has been in trade rumors and avoiding the trades since Tim Duncan was in the league. I mean, there's a reason the Pacers keep him around. He's very reliable. I think he would be a perfect center to transition from the DeMarcus Cousins era to the new era. I think he can complement Domantas Sabonis pretty well. I mean, they were teammates in Indiana. I mean, towards the end of his run, Sabonis was a star there. Okay, now we are at the seventh pick, which the Denver Nuggets, who originally took Emmanuel Mudiay. Yeah, I think that's how you say his name. He was a point guard. He didn't amount to much, considering I can barely even remember his name. So anyway, they will be taking Norman Powell, who is having a career year this season. He very well should and probably will be winning the most improved player. But even before that, he was a solid role player who I think would have made huge contributions to the Nuggets in their title run in 2023. A little before that, a little after that. He's just been a very good player for a while, and now he's taken the jump to stardom. And of course, I think the Nuggets with Norman Powell this season would be a very scary team. I'm not sure if anyone could beat them if they had Norman Powell. I mean, even now they're contenders as is. So I think this is a very good fit for the Nuggets, and I think it's a very good fit for Powell. I think it kind of reminds me of what they had with Bruce Brown a couple seasons ago. I think he kind of plays a similar role to that, a little more offensive minded, but still, I think he can take the scoring load off Murray. So now we are at the eighth pick in the 2015 NBA draft. So the Pistons, they originally took Stanley Johnson, an athletic forward with a lot of potential. None of it was actually lived up to. So instead, why not take another athletic forward? This time, Kelly Oubre, a guy who's actually done stuff in the NBA. I mean, the past couple of seasons for the Sixers, he's been a very reliable role player for them. He can score. You think he's starting to contribute in more areas now that he's on the Sixers. But even before then, he was a very good scorer. And I think the Pistons, they just desperately need talent, particularly at the forward position. Even now. I mean, even now. But especially in the past seasons when they just were very lacking in talent just overall, especially at the forward position. They have Cade Cunningham, they have some big men, but they need some forward talent. I think Kelly Oubre can slide in perfectly into the forward position. So now we are at the ninth pick in the NBA, in the 2015 NBA draft. So the Charlotte Hornets, they originally took Frank the Tank Kaminsky, and despite having a very cool nickname, he was not good at basketball. But, the general principle of taking a big man as Al Jefferson was at the very end of his run in 2015, that makes sense. I think it's again like the Kings. The thought process was good, the actual execution was not. So instead of some random bum, they're going to be taking Bobby Portis, who has been one of the most reliable role players for the Bucks since he got there. Was a reliable role player even before that with the Knicks and the Wizards. I think he would really complement LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller well. He can space the floor. He can get rebounds. I mean, that's exactly what the Hornets need. They have some, decently talented big men, but none, I think, really complement what the Hornets are trying to build well. But I think Bobby Portis does. Of course, if they ended up trading him for picks, I guess it doesn't matter. So now we are finally at the 10th pick in the 2015 NBA draft. This is the last one I'm going to be redrafting just because I don't want this video to be too long. So the Heat, they originally took Justice Winslow, another talented forward, very similar to Stanley Johnson, who I mentioned a couple picks ago. And, I mean, Winslow was a little better than Stanley Johnson, but he really just didn't. Neither of them really ended up doing anything in the NBA. They actually did make a very good pick much later in the draft, the 40th overall pick, Josh Richardson, who I think in this redraft would still end up on the Heat, but this time with the 10th pick. I think Josh Richardson, he ended up being part of a trade that brought Jimmy Butler to Miami, and then ironically he was also a part of the trade that sent Jimmy Butler away from Miami. But Richardson's had a couple stints in Miami. He's found ways to contribute in both of them. I think he's a very solid role player. He can play defense. He can score. Just a very good guy to have on your bench.